Hello, welcome back to our class, grade 11 students of Bethel Christian School of Tarlac Incorporated. Okay, hello again. Shout out muna tayo kasi napalaga siya nagko-comment sa mga videos natin. Shout out kay Daniel Gaculais, okay, of grade 11 ABM. Is it ABM? Yeah, I think it's ABM. Hey, now, so we will just continue our discussion about the statistics and probability for your finals this coming next week, I think. Yeah. Okay, so we already finished about the Z test or the Z distribution. We are now about to start our new topic, which is this one. I will share my screen first. Okay. And so our next lesson will be the T distribution. So the first one we did is about Z, right? Now we are going to discuss about T. So which or what will be this one? Is this the same as Z test or different from Z test? Let's see. Okay. So in this lesson, this will be our objectives. We have at the end of the lesson, and taas ko muna yung video ko. At the end of the lesson, the learner should be able to properly describe a T distribution in the degrees of freedom. So we have two main dito, meron tayong dalawang main na or main ideas. Okay, so we have the T distribution and the degree of freedom. Appropriately identify the conditions in using the T distribution. So what are those conditions? Para masabi na we need to use a T distribution or we can use the T distribution. And then last one is we have the accurately compute for the T value. So compute. So magko-compute tayo mamaya. Okay? Next one. We have this one. These are the essential questions. Okay. What is the T distribution? How would you know if a T distribution is appropriate for a certain statistical test? How do you differentiate T test from Z test? Okay. So later on, we will know what will be the difference between those two. Okay. Let's start this one. Learn about it. So T distribution or sometimes called students T distribution. Okay, this is a probability distribution that is used to estimate population parameters. One would say population parameters. What is what is parameter again? This one is about the characterization of the exact or specific number of respondents or data, right? That is for parameters. And if you say parameters, this is included in only samples, right? Hindi siya kinukuha doon sa population. It's about the samples only. We want to say parameters, right? So estimate population parameters when the sample size is small. So gaano siya kaliit yung number of data natin. So we have here, our number of data must be less than or equal to 30. See that one? Less than or equal to 30. So we have 30 and below. Of course, siguro naman hindi man magkakaroon tayo na yung isa lang na respondent, di ba? So maybe 2 or 10 maybe, 10 up to 30. That will be the main, kumbaga, main area lang ng ating T distribution. If your data is 31 and above, you will not be able to do or to use the T distribution. So mag-Z test na tayo doon kapag mas malaki sa 30. Okay, so that is one of their differences. So dito, yes, there's also a sample, but the sample size must be less than or equal to 30. Okay, again, if your sample size is greater than 30, then we will not be able to use the t distribution. We will now use the z-test instead of the t-test. Okay, so the formula used in finding the t-value. Okay, so this one is for the t-value only. Wala pa siyang specific na sagot. Kumbaga, ano, what I mean is, in some samples, hindi naman sinasabi na kukunin mo lang ang t-value, no. There's another question. So dito parang pinaka first step lang natin. Okay? So ito yung t-value natin. This will be the formula. T equals x bar minus, this one is, hold on, the population mean all over S divided by the square root of n. So what are the meaning of those symbols? Where x bar is the sample mean. Sample mean. We have the sample data, and then what does that mean? That is the sample mean, right? And we have the whole population mean. Naman tayo yung isang parang U na may mahaba lang dito na U, parang ganun. S is the sample standard deviation, and N is the sample size. Okay? So kung napapansin nyo dito, we have 4 symbols. So we need to identify those 4 in a given example. Okay? It's like this one. This is an example. A law school claims its graduates earn an average of $300 per hour. A sample of 15 graduates is selected and found to have a mean salary of $280 with a sample standard deviation of $50. Okay? Assuming the school's claim is true, what is the probability that the mean salary of graduates will be no more than $280? So just like this one, that's like what I said, yung t-value is only our first step. It's because our main question, what is the probability? So ano yung percentage? Right? So hindi naman about percentage yung t-value natin. So our t-value is also important because that is our first step. If your t-value is wrong, then the next steps, okay, will also be wrong. Diba? So dapat alam mo muna kung paano kunin si t-value. Now, let us find first the t-value. But before that one, we need to identify what are the 4. Okay? Yung 4 kanina na sinasabi natin na symbols. Una, sample mean, population mean, sample standard deviation, and the sample size. Okay, what do you think here? A law school claims its graduates earn an average of $300 per hour. A sample of 15 graduates is selected and found to have a mean salary of $280 with a sample standard deviation of $50. Assuming the school's claim is true, what is the probability that the mean salary of graduates will be no more than $180? So here we have $300, $280, 15 graduates, and $50. So may apat na tayo, di ba? So saan kaya dyan yung ating mga symbols? Unahin naman natin si sample mean. Ano yung sample mean natin? Is it $280 or 15 graduates? Ano ba yung sample natin? Ayun na nga. Okay, so our sample mean is the $280. Okay? Why not, teacher? Why not 15? It's because our 15, that will be our sample size. Kasi ilan? Right? Ilan yung na-select doon sa lahat ng mga graduates. So, They just chose 15 graduates, and that will be our sample size. Okay? And our sample mean is the $280 because it says here sample mean is $280. Okay? So you must know how to identify those. Our population mean is $300 because that is the parang pinaka-obvious or pinaka-estimated na kanilang mga masasweldo per hour. Correct? That will be the population mean. And then the sample standard deviation of 50 is actually already here. Diba? Kumbaga, it's already there. Andun na yung value ng mismong sample standard deviation. Okay? So after identifying those given, we have the sample mean, population mean, sample standard deviation, and the sample size. Let us now put those in our formula. Okay? Sige, ilagay natin dito ha. Copy mo muna para ma-solve natin sa ating whiteboard. Okay? Sample mean is 280. Population mean is 300. S is 50 or standard deviation. And our sample size is 50. Okay. Punta ako sa aking whiteboard. Okay. So this will be our formula, right? T equals, T is the T value, correct? T equals X bar, and then this one all over S over square root of N. Okay. Let us put those numbers inside this formula. We have the X bar, which is 280. Okay. Minus, we have the 300. All right. And then we have the S, which is 50, all over the square root of 15. Mahalata pa yung 15 mali. So, ibarahin ko siya ha. Ibarahin ko. The square root of 50. Okay. So that will be the first one. Now, let us minus 280 minus 300. We have negative 20. And then 50 over square root of 15. So you need to use your calculator. Okay. So dito ang gagamitin ko is ang aking calculator, of course. Okay. Calculator ko. Okay. That will be 50. Okay, wait. 50 over the square root of 50. Okay, so here, this is my answer, 50 over square root of 15. Okay, gagawin ko lang siyang i-round off siya, okay, into 2 decimal places. So we have here 12.91. Okay, so approximate na lang siya. Kasi di ba siya exact. Okay, and then I will divide that one. 20 divide 20 divide the answer. 20 divide by 12 divided by 12.91 equals the negative of 1.54918. Ching. So I'll just put here negative 1.54918. 55. So this will be now our t value. Okay? So ano ba yung trabaho ng t value na yan? Is because here on our next lesson we have what we call the t table. Okay? Meron tayong part dito, meron tayong part dito. Okay? So this t value we can see that one on this part sa gitna. Okay? So merong part dito na next na video natin, and then this part. So this is only the first step. So our t value is negative 1.55 approximately. Okay, let's see if you are correct. Kung di mo siya exact, at least nasa negative 1.5 something siya. Okay? Balik tayo sa ating okay. So here, okay. So this will be our t value. So we are correct, of course, diba? So we have negative 1.549 or negative 1.55. Okay? So I just kumbaga kakasabi ko lang kanina, okay? This is just our first step. Okay? So ang second step natin, since our question is about the probability, okay, kakaroon tayo ng 3 steps. Yung second step natin, it will include the what we call degrees of freedom. Okay? So after knowing how to find the t value, let us continue our discussion about this one, degrees of freedom. It's because that will be our second step in order for us to solve problems regarding t distribution. Okay? So, skip ko muna itong part na to, that we will proceed to the degrees of freedom. It's because we need to learn this one first before we go to this last part. Okay? Okay. Now, so this is now what we call degrees of freedom. Hindi na siya mabura. Okay? Purihin ko muna yung aking mga sinulat. And back to there. Then wala na siya. O, diba? Okay. So step 2. We need to know first, or we need to know next, will be the degrees of freedom. The number of independent pieces of information needed to calculate something. So that is the main definition of the degrees of freedom. This term also refers to the number of free choices left after a sample statistic such as X bar is calculated. If we already have what we call the sample mean, we can easily find the degrees of freedom. Okay? So, yung degrees of freedom na yan, doon sa ating t-table, yun yung nandito sa gilid. Okay? Itong sa left side na dito. Yun yung degrees of freedom. This will be the t value, and diba na pesa dito. That will be the last part will be later. Okay? So, if we only have single group or one group, this will be our formula. So, n minus 1. Ano yung n? Number of sample data. Correct? Ilan yung nasa sample data? For example, 15. So, minus 1. So, we have the degrees of freedom which is 40. So, sa mag-minus 1 lang tayo. Then, if we have two groups, okay, two groups, kumbaga two na sample size, or two sample data, we will use this formula. Okay, so data 1 plus data 2, the sum of those two will be minus by 2. Okay, so n1 plus n2 minus 2. Again, from kapag meron tayong isang group or single group, n minus 1. If we have two groups, n1 plus n2 minus 2. Okay? Where n1, and n2 are the sample sizes. Okay? So for example, in my problem, meron akong isang sample size lang. My sample size, let's say 29. And 29 is still part of the three distributions because this one is less than or equal to 30. Correct? So, kapag tinanong, what will be your degrees of freedom if you have 29 sample size? Okay? So, I will use this ones because 29 is only one. So, I will just put 29 minus 1 and our degrees of freedom will become 28. Okay? But if we have two sample size, for example, we have 28 and 29 and 28, for example, so I will plus these two first. 29 plus 28 is because this one is here. Two groups, right? 29 plus 28, that is 57, and then we will minus by 2. So we have 55. So 55 will be our degrees of freedom. As simple as that. Kumbaga, hindi na kailangan ng knowledge sa algebra or something. Okay? Magpa-plus minus lang tayo dito. Okay. Let's have some examples. Okay, before some examples or some activities, let us first learn about the characteristics of a tree distribution. Okay? The T distribution is a bell-shaped and symmetric about T, or the T value is equal to 0. So 0 nasa gitna. The total area under a T curve is 1. Okay? So they are the same with 1. Kasi dun sa z-test natin, they are also 1. Correct? 50%, 50%, or 50-50. The the mean, median, and mode of the T distribution are all equal to 0. So lahat sila ay 0. Hindi, kumbaga hindi siya parehas sa z-test because our z-test, mean, mean, mode, and then our median is nasa gitna nga sila but then it's not 0. Correct? Meron tayong value ng mean na kinukuha sa z-test. Correct? But here, the distribution, those three are all equal to 0. The variance of the t distribution is equal to n minus 1 over n minus 3, okay? Which approaches 1 as n. Increases infinitely. Okay? Number 5. The t distribution is a family of curves is determined by the degrees of freedom. Okay? So it's important to know about the degrees of freedom kasi part siya ng ating t distribution. As the sample size n gets larger, the t distribution gets closer to the normal distribution. Okay? If our n, for example, is pinaka-maximum na natin is 30, so it is now closer to the normal distribution. Okay? So those are the 6 characteristics of a t distribution, and we will use those later to differentiate or to differ from the test. Okay? These are some conditions in using the t distribution. So these are conditions. Paano masasabi na, oh, okay, I can use t distribution. So how? These are the conditions. First one is we have the sample size is small. Okay? Our sample size is less than or equal to 30. And of course, they are randomly selected. Pero malalaman nyo mamaya, yung randomly selected na yan is meron ba siyang Katulad ng z-test na meron tayong apat na random techniques. Okay? Number two, the population standard deviation is unknown. It's because our concentration here is about the parameter or the sample, right? So the population standard deviation is not part or it's unknown. The parent population, the population from which you are sampling is essentially normal. Okay? So hindi siya magpabago. So those are the three conditions in using the T distribution. Now, let us try to answer some questions regarding the degrees of freedom and the T table. Okay, number one, what is the degrees of freedom of a sample of 15? Meron lang tayong two formulas, right? If we have only one group or single group, we will just do like this. Df equals n minus 1, correct? But if we have two or more, we have df n1 plus n2 minus 2. So here, on the first part, or the first example, we only have one sample size, which is 15. So we will use this one. So how to find the degrees of freedom? Okay, this one is easy as 1, 2, 3. Or easy as A, B, C sa mga bata. Okay, so what we have here 15 minus 1, we have the degrees of freedom, which is 14. As simple as that. Okay, so we have the answer, which is 14, and we are correct. Number two, two sample sizes were taken for a research study. 21 for the experimental group and 18 for the control group. Okay? If T distribution is to be used, what degrees of freedom should be used by the researcher? So the question here is, what will be the degrees of freedom? Since we have two sample sizes, which are 21 and 18, we will do this one, correct? We will use this formula. So we have 21 plus 18 minus 2 is 37. So this will be our degrees of freedom, 37. Okay, easy. So that is as simple as that. So if you want to find out the degrees of freedom, make sure the problem is part of T distribution. So you need to know, or you need to know how to identify if the problem can be solved by T distribution or not. Okay? Bago mo hanapin yung mga bagay-bagay. Okay? So these are the differences between those two. In the z-test, data size is greater than 30. Diba? Sabi mo kanina. In t-test, data size is smaller than 30. Z-test, data points is not related or doesn't affect any other data point. For example, in our example, both the control and the experimental group were independent from each other. Okay? But in the t-test, data points might be related to each other, where the behavior or value of one point may affect another. Okay? So dito, medyo magkaiba na sila. It's because here in the t-test, we have the population. In t-test, we only have the parameters or the sample itself. Okay? Data is normally distributed. If data size is greater than 30, we can assume it is. Data is not normally distributed. It's because it approaches the normal distribution if we have a greater number of data. Okay? Data was randomly selected from a broader population. Okay? data was not randomly selected. So ano ibig sabihin? Kanina doon sa condition natin, it is also randomly selected. Ano ibig sabihin nun? We have 4 techniques or random techniques in z-test, right? And then yung stratified random sampling, something like that. And then the other kind of random sample techniques, correct? So here in t-test, um, it doesn't mean na sabi ito, the data was not randomly selected. The list randomly selected is because they can also pick. Okay? So sinasabi lang dito na data was not randomly selected, maybe, okay, yung 4 na random techniques hindi na siya part sa t-test. It's because it has only, less than or equal to 30 data. So madali na lang siyang i-random kapag nasa 30 lang siya. Tama? And then this one, sample sizes should be equal if possible. Yung sample size natin. In t-test, sample sizes are not equal. It's because sa ating mga examples kanina, magkaiba yung 2 sample sizes natin, di ba? Hindi sila parehas. It's because if they are the same, we have the answer -2. And wala naman tayong -2 na degrees of freedom. Okay? They are all positive. That is 0 up to 100. Okay? So those are the differences between those two. Now, I will give you 2 minutes. Just try to answer this one. Okay? What is the degree of freedom of a sample of 22? What degrees of freedom should you use if you will take these 2 sample sizes respectively? 28 and 30. Okay? So, you have here 15 minutes, 2 minutes I should say, and then after 2 minutes we will check. So yan kung naintindihan nyo yung aking pinagsasabi dito. Okay? Your timer starts now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, so while you are answering, I will just explain why medyo nawala ako ng isang buwan. Okay, I will explain first. We have a lot of activities in my school here in Thailand. Meron kaming magkakasunod na camp. Okay, English camp namin. No, it's not the English camp first, the scouting. Yung scouting namin. Although isang araw lang siya, but the activity is full day. And we need to assist the student. So, pagod-pagod ako pagka-uwi. And then we have the English camp. That is 2 days and 1 night. So, doon kami natulog sa resort. Sa tabi ng dagat, okay? Doon kami nag-camp. And of course, maraming meetings, maraming mga data na kailangan i-approve or disapprove lang yan, okay? Nag-join force kami na yan, napagod-pagod, and then after 2 days, pagod na naman. And then, after noon, balik na lang sa STEM. Okay, 2 minutes is already finished. Let us answer this one. So in the first activity, what is the degree of freedom of a sample of 22? Since we only have one sample size, which is 22, so what will be the degrees of freedom? It's easy. 22 minus 1. So the answer here is 21. Hey! Nakuha niyo ba? Pwede rin nakuha yan. Sabi ko sa inyo, ulang kayo. Pwede rin nakuha yan. Okay, number 2. What degrees of freedom should be used if you will take these 2 sample sizes respectively, 28 and 30? So since there are 2, i-add muna natin. Tama? So 28 plus 13 is 50. Oh, no, it's 50. 41. Correct? So 41 minus 2, we have 39. So 39 will be the degrees of freedom for number 2. Okay? If you got it correctly, then may tama ka. But if you got it wrong, practice more. Okay? Okay, so please do a screenshot for this one, individual practice. So the main question here is a T distribution appropriate for this study? And then you need to explain. Okay, okay, this one. So this will be your activity. So screenshot also, and then just pass your activity sa messenger na lang natin. Okay, sa akin nyo lang isend para hindi na magulo yung QSA ninyo. Okay, so this one is you need to find the t-value only. So easy. So just find the t-value. Okay, screenshot na. Okay, okay. Now, so this will be the end of our lesson for today, and I will record another video para sa inyong next na lesson, and then that will be part of your air final exam also. Okay, so see you again next time, and don't forget to like the video also, and then tawag dito, yung hindi pa subscribe, mag-subscribe naman na kayo, and then mag-comment na din. Okay? Ano nangyari? Ba't di ko makuha yung aking... Ayan. Okay. So, bye for now.